Welcome back. This is a very hard task that I have to talk after people had food. Let's try to stay lively. Fortunately, we didn't have alcoholic drinks just yet. But yeah, looking forward. So for starters, I had to prepare a little introduction to this panel on common practices of urban development. And I was very, there was a sentence that I think Francisco wrote in the description of this event, which was, cities are not made by buildings, they're made by the people. And that's resonated a lot with me and Jane Jacobs and anything that she could have written. But it seems that we have, in the previous two panels, we have seen a lot of human practices of how to make a city. So I think now our task is to go a bit more into the material aspect and the material contribution of how to make a city. So I think that so far we have seen a lot of different kinds of institutions contributing to the common effort of building a city. Some were rules, like the right to challenge. Others were proper institutions, like municipalities. Then we had cooperatives, collectives, unions. Someone said unions even. And we have seen, I think I got two main takeaways from the past two sessions. One was the importance of understanding how to set the standards of the development of a city, and also a question of sustainability. And on the other hand, the second panel, I think, focused a lot on the concept of neglect and how neglect can also be very resourceful, and including the importance of sharing resources. So with that, I think that what we are gonna build on for this session is gonna be about how can we make a city in the most practical sense and understanding of it. A city can be a place for a place of work, and I think Jette will talk about this a bit. A city can also be a place of relations, and I think Marieke can illustrate a bit of her practice, but a city can also be a place that needs to be built anyways. And I think that both Tom and Amanda will make a great job in contributing to that strand. With that, enough talking for me. I will just start with, yes, you're gonna start, right?
I will try to do it quickly, because I was doubting a bit, like, so people know the story of the wijkpaleis, and shall I tell it again? But then I decided to do a quick run through. So actually, I'm an architectural historian, and maybe was writing about making the city, and then started to play around with 5 ladies. Maybe that's an important thing, actually, with a place called Singeldingen. And that was a summary place that we made. And we ended up with a wijkpaleis in the end. So I can tell you quickly the linear story about the physical thing. But for me, the important question that I want to add is, buying a palace, is it necessary to create a common? And do these things belong together? So this was Singeldingen, just a summer spot in where we used a spring roll venting place to start, and then we extended. We made a more formal kiosk, but still it was only a place that popped up and disappeared after summer. And then from there, I now tell you only the physical thing is we went to, we wanted to make a more permanent place for our community, because people like Dirk, who's sitting over there, every time we disappeared, he was asking the question, where do I go to? What is the place where I can be then? And we all happily went into our works and our own social life, but for him, this was his social life. So that was a very important question for us to start thinking about that. So we ended up in a former neighborhood center, actually, in the Souterrain. And there we started very pop-up, a little place. And from there, we tried to buy this building, but that didn't work. But what helped was that we, from there, were able to go to this building. And there we started to have the discussion with the municipality, like, okay, we do want to rent the building, but the thing, I forgot your name, from the Poortgebouw was talking about, like that they have no say in the maintenance of the building, but do pay a lot of money for that. That was an important issue here for us as well. So that's why we started to negotiate about, okay, we want to do the maintenance ourselves. And that was a no-go for the government. So then we said, okay, don't do any maintenance for 3 years, and then in 3 years we will buy the building. So that's the option that we got. So we had a renting contract with no maintenance. That's things we did ourselves. And within 3 years, we had the option of buying the building. And on one hand, you can think like that's really important to have an asset like that, like a common, and to buy it. But I think we can also ask questions to it. But anyway, to buy, you need a crowd. It's not like you can just buy a building like this. So for us, we started to really involve the community in buying the building. So not only in the story of buying the building, but also in the financing of the building. That became a big part of our way of financing the building. So it's not they that will buy the building, but we will buy the building. I see that in translating things, it went a bit wrong, but everybody did its own part. So it could be small, it could be big, but everybody was adding to it. And then it was, of course, also a bumpy road. So there was a lot of ups and downs in achieving it, which took us a lot of energy. And actually, now looking back, it was a lot of energy that we actually also needed or now we see that this is energy that we can really put into the community and not so much into buying the building. So for us, the whole idea of, well, I just quickly go through this. In the end, we managed. Hey. But actually, I wanted to go to this. Because for me, now looking backwards, I have a question for myself, like, okay, I see all the benefits that we have from buying the building, but I think that the thing that we are actually doing is making this community from 5 to 15 to 150, and in a diverse neighborhood, as Rotterdam West is, it's not so common to have like a community. Like, for example, the people in the Poortgebouw, they are community based on, like, maybe they identify as people that belong in the Poortgebouw, but a community in a neighborhood as diverse as Rotterdam West, that is not by itself a community. So that takes really a lot of time. So for me, the travel of 2008 till now is much more about building this community than it is about coming from a venting place to the big wijkpaleis. And that's what we try to show here. That it's like, for us, it's like if you look like on the layers of the ground, in the ground, and you see like that the community part really adds, and becomes more and stronger. And that is for us the important thing. I don't know why it's doing this. Oh. Well, this I skip. And what we see now by owning the building is that we do have more energy and time to invest into the community. So more people are coming to the place and ask for things, but we do have attention and really time and space to make something of these questions and make it more important or more meaningful to the community. So that is something that we think is the meaning of having a building more than... so the question is also for us, like, is it so much that you really own it, or is it the stability of having a building where you can be sure that you can stay? And that is, I think, a question for all of us. Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Right. Okay. Participatory planning, the key to success in urban development. Yes, I am biased. You'll find out why in the next slide. I'm Tom van Geest and I'm an urban planner. But I still stand behind what I said in the first slide. And I will explain why in the rest of the presentation. I am director of Urban Green Deals. That's a company here in Rotterdam, working on urban development. The context for our work is recognition of the shift in the development paradigm over time, in whether that's land development or public service development, with the post-war period being dominated by government-driven services, then liberalization globally around the 80s, market forces started to dominate. And now, of course, we're seeing the shift to the community and the neighborhood, so the topic especially of today. And that's where I think the focus will be in the next decades is really how to operationalize that shift. So moving beyond the policies and the pilots, etc., but really this system change, the nitty-gritty of making it happen. Of course, there's all sorts of the language of this shift to the community is clear. It's inclusive, it's resilient, it's sustainable, all these things. But really, making that happen, and implementing it into the existing structures of municipalities, figuring out the financing, the land ownership, all these complex things, that will take the time. And that's what we focus on. Oh, and upscaling too. So it's not just about one-offs and not just implementing a single project, but how do we take those lessons and pilots and make them applicable elsewhere. So that's first participatory planning. I see that as very much an answer to the question of how to operationalize. And I visualize participatory planning as an iceberg. Very typically, clients come to me or to us and say, "Hey, I want an app. I want an affordable house. I want a youth service or something." They already know in their head what they want, and they just want me to do it and deliver it to them. And I always have to deliver bad news that, that's not how I work. And that's, in my experience, it doesn't bring success. If I would guess, I would say, in terms of development projects, I would say 3/4 of projects fail in my field that I see. And I think that's because of this product-based approach, where the idea is to already have in mind what needs to be done before going through the process. And participatory planning, to me, is then not just, of course, you still want a product at the end, but you also pay attention to the invisible products. Community building, strategies, the economic feasibility, paying attention to the underlying systems, how they are functioning. And even below that, maybe it's not even readable, but it does say invisible, so I guess that's logical. The invisible processes of the human relationships and how people are organized, how people take leadership, all these things which I wish more gemeentestaff and etc. paid more attention to in themselves, in the neighborhood, etc. Because until those cultural aspects shift, we'll never have the system change to get to the flag at the top, the visible product. I will give a few examples of some projects of how we do it. First one is a spatial project in Iraq. Second one is a social service project in Leeuwarden, in the north of the Netherlands. And the third one is just some projects that are cooking. So the Local Governance Resilience Program, or LOGO-REP for short. Sorry for the horrible name, I didn't come up with it, but yeah, it is what it is. Typically when we get into a project, we're bombarded with technical information. And this is where most people working in the urban development field are trained and have the most comfort. So this was no different when we arrived in Iraq, where there are piles and piles of documents with these kind of drawings. This is the bus turning radius for a bus that goes at 10 kilometers per hour. And there's different sketches for how that should look, etc. And that went for all sorts of other things. How trees should be planted, how the landscape should look, how buildings should be. And they're very fluent in working in this way, just like many planners are that I work with in the gemeente. But they have less comfort with what's really needed, which is the mess of working with stakeholders, having difficult conversations, and really starting with the uncertainty of bringing people together and working through, hey, what do we really want and what can we build together? So when we arrived, we politely pushed aside the technical drawings, which are very important, by the way. I don't want to say technical drawings are not important. They're extremely important, and I don't have great skills in that, but they have their place and at a certain time of the process. So we went back to basics, and with these very technical people, we trained them using tools from improv theater. That's my night and weekend job as an improv theater performer, trainer, etc. So using these tools we developed, we trained. We call this exercise "Talking Like a Colonel," where you practice difficult conversations with different stakeholders: the imam, the local entrepreneurs, the mukhtar, who's the local leader there, and with the idea that through this process of talking with stakeholders, then the right product falls out of it. So instead of product before process, we always say first the process, then the product. And in this case, the result was, with all these discussions and working together with stakeholders, was an investment catalog. This is for one of the 5 cities where we worked, Kauergask, and it's a compilation of the priorities within the city, of what they want for development. So in this case, so you can see on the bottom right, there's a refugee camp. That's the blue area. So that was a really important part of this project, is also the inclusion of refugees, mostly from the war in Syria, some internally displaced people also from the Iraq wars. But here, together with stakeholders, they prioritized new green spaces, health facilities, education, roads, basically whatever is needed. Put it together in a catalog, and we chose one project in each of the cities to design and implement, sort of to test the implementation process, to prove that it works. This is the new civic square in Karagosk, now built. I should have put the real, this is only a render, but it does exist. Small business grants, this is one of the refugees from Syria who was supported in starting the first bookshop in Karagosk. And that program was really about how can refugees be supported in adding value to the town, because that's really important, because there's often a lot of tension between the existing town and the refugees. In the sense, people wonder, they're just taking our services, or they're costing money, etc. But through this approach, we can, working together, you can show that with the skills that they bring, a lot of entrepreneurial people who can really bring something, bring value to the city. So the result of this process, 85 million US dollars in planned investment and 15,000 estimated jobs, both direct and indirect. And we finished, not only with those results in the 5 municipalities, which are linked to a national vision, but also a how-to method, so that this can be replicated by the people we worked with. 10 steps towards making these kind of plans together with stakeholders. And a community of practice. So it's a group of 20 people who worked with us for 3 years. We all suffered together and had successes together. But in the end, through that process, we have 20 people who can now share what they've learned with other municipalities, other governorates, and they've even been asked to come here to the Netherlands to share. And we also developed a sustainability plan that said, okay, we have had these great successes. Now how do we implement and upscale? And that's a 20-year plan for a national planning framework for the Kurdish region of Iraq, which is the area of Iraq we worked in. And really the core of this program, but actually participatory planning in general, is it can't be learned with a PowerPoint, sorry for that, nor from a book, but by working together. And like I said, suffering together, working through challenges together. We had coaching sessions every 2 weeks online. We worked through problems. And this is an example of, this was in Rotterdam, where the planners visited City of Rotterdam planners, and we just worked together on the Dutch planners brought problems that they had, and the Iraqi planners brought problems they had, and through the exchange of culture and different expertise, we worked through them together. And actually that's one of the cores of the next phase of the program, is this peer-to-peer learning. Next phase is upscaling from the current governorate, where we are working to the rest of the region. So that's a summary of from the more spatial side, moving from the typical market-driven or neoliberal approach where everyone's for themselves. Every stakeholder does their own thing, finds their own money, and in the end, not much happens. There's not enough, never enough money available. There's always some roadblocks. But the more community-driven approach is all stakeholders pooling resources, priorities, looking for complementary areas between projects. Second project, social service development. That's illustrated by the Network Center in Leeuwarden. This is the Network Center. It's an old gym, or part of an old sports club. The man on the right is the founder and chief, is a refugee from Bosnia, and the rest beside him is the team of regular volunteers and supporters. And one of the main questions that Senan, the man on the right, always asks is, what will yourself? So what do you really want? And I think that's really the key from his success, is that in terms of social service delivery, it's not what can we do for you, but it's what do you want and how can we make that happen? If I would summarize the Network Center, its services from and for marginalized residents. So if you have, if you look at the society, let's say in a pyramid here of who has access, Network Center is really the people who are most distant from society, have the most challenges with addictions or mental health problems, homelessness, etc. And so those people who fall through, even falling through the municipal safety net, That's the target. Here's an example of someone who had difficult psychological problems, family problems, on the edge of homelessness. And through the network center, he's became a cook, and he's now going to cook school, found a house, and as you can see, he's very happy. Network center serves 9,000 people, all sorts of services from free basic necessities to legal help, learning trades, a neighborhood green team, learning, which brings something for not only the people who access the services, but also the volunteers. Because one of the tenets or the foundation of the network center is that there's always a possibility or the invitation to become a service provider yourself. So very often people come to visit the network center as a client. They need some sort of services, or they have a question or a difficulty in life. But over time, by asking this question of what do you really want, people find their own way and are also able to give back. So this woman here is head of the free clothing department, which offers free clothes to anyone who comes in and asks, regardless of income or situation, no questions asked. And she also had a very difficult time before she came to the network center. But when, after she had been accessing services there for a while and got a bit stable, then she realized that her past experience working in a clothing shop could do a much better job of taking care of the shop than what was being done. She said, hey, I can offer my services, and now she is the full-time organizer and staff of this clothing center. Products that we delivered for this evaluation system, that was really, really important because there wasn't really a handle on what the network center really gave back, just in terms of pure numbers. Everyone had a feeling and understood that it offered a lot of value to every stakeholder, the community, the municipality, but there wasn't figures on that. Second, how-to method. That's a book we recently finished for how to start a network center. So based on the experience of Senon and the other volunteers, we give a peek under the hood for how you start one of these places, because they get all kinds of questions from across the country is how do you start one of these places? We also want to do it. And same thing like with development planning, that's not learned. A lot of people come and they say, just give us the PowerPoint and then we'll go back and make it ourselves in our municipality. But yeah, it doesn't work that way. You need to sit side by side with someone like Senon and understand how he works and how he approaches people, how he develops relationships, and how he really gets to the core of who somebody is, what they can offer, and how he makes that tangible. Third step, which we're now working on, is how the network center can be part of the national program. So there's, in the Netherlands, I believe it's 20 neighborhoods who are quite deprived, who are part of a national program. Actually, Brandellero South is also part of that program. And Leeuwarden Oost, or East, in Leeuwarden, where the network center is, that's also part of the national program. And because of the success of the network center, we're now working with how to position this really as an engine that can generate more value for the neighborhood, but also be a driver of urban development. So in terms of housing and health, employment, etc. Oh, the value. I mentioned before the value of services. So just very briefly, I don't know if you can see it, but in the gray text underneath each of the services, there's the amount of money that's invested by the municipality. And the total value that comes back to the municipality is 9 times what is invested. So when this became clear, then of course that was a real game changer for the municipality and other stakeholders, because now there's ammunition and understanding in, it's not just a feeling anymore that it brings value, but there's really, proof. So again, this is an illustration of the shift from the more market-driven and government-driven approaches to what the community can do. by organizing and working together. Currently cooking. So this is just very brief. Other projects we're working on in a similar vein. Own source revenue, basically another word for municipalities generating more of their own revenues through taxes. This is a project in Kenya. And we are linking this to the logo rep process in Iraq, because that's really key in a lot of countries where we work, is that there's not enough tax revenue being generated, and that's in our research that didn't come down because, and then most people try to tackle that with more apps and a technical approach. But what we found is actually the real reason is trust. That most people don't pay taxes because they don't trust that the government will use it well. So taking a participatory approach builds the trust that people can have control of where their tax money goes, how it will be used, and if it's done in a transparent way and communicated well, then people are willing to pay more taxes, which can support more urban development. End-of-life services. This is quite new, but yeah, working towards more community-driven, what I call death services. So really, the whole process of reaching the end of your life and how you and your family and the health system deals with that. It's very clinical and. Yeah, there isn't much space for relation and community and introspection and different cultural needs. So we are working on how to develop more community-driven services in that towards the concept of a compassionate community. Look it up. There's a compassionate community charter and a whole series of communities that have signed up for that. And yeah, the end of life and palliative care services is a major part of that. Participation task forces. This was a project in Turkey, near Ankara. The participation task force is a way to bring together elected representatives, city politicians, together with municipal staff, and in this case, citizens who are organized in a citizen assembly. This was a very effective way of developing public services to cut through this communication problem that often occurs. I think we've heard it earlier today, very often this mismatch or this miscommunication between policy level, the political situation, and the neighborhoods and communities. So these teams working together is really effective for that. And we developed also a how-to guide or toolkit for that. And last place, we think it's really important to work always in our own community. It's always nice, of course, to travel and to learn about other places and be in other contexts, but I think one should always work in their own community. So this is the street where our office is located in Rotterdam North. And we're also in the early stages of initiating a integrated plan for working with the neighborhood on improving the public space and housing and other energy, etc. So, yeah, and that's it. Just last one. Kan niet, bestaat niet, that's the slogan of the network center in Leeuwarden, and it translates as can't doesn't exist. And it's a beautiful slogan, which I like to live by also. So, and visit it if you have a chance. It's a really, really great place.
My name is Jette Schneider, and I have a little presentation about time window. I found it a quite challenge to consider what am I going to talk about, because it can be a lot. So I hope this summary gives you a brief impression. Time window. If you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go further, go together. Originally, it's not further, but far. But I'm happy with further. It's a quote of an artist when we reflected how we're doing a time window. And I have to say, I think it's the biggest experiment I've ever joined, but it's also the most intensive and also in that sense successful, because I really can connect to what just was said, like what can communities offer to better the world. So this is why we invented Time Window almost 10 years ago for a group of people that work in the stage arts. So why stage arts? Because I have a background and I feel affiliated with those, and there was a hard time after cuts and everybody, whether you could enter a big stage or not, and when you enter it was very often project-based and then you had a gap, or the increasing amount of individual stage artists had to do it all. Like the self-employed, that is not only the artist but also the business manager, the PR expert, the human relation management expert. So there was quite a hustle. So we thought, okay, what about considering how can we empower individual stage artists by then? Nowadays it's a performance, we widened it, and I can really connect what was earlier said, that you really have to draw a line. What is your target group of a community? Because otherwise you lose the grip. How can we empower individual performance makers and improve their position and practice? And therefore we said we need space. Space for performance artists is not a given phenomenon. Like for visual artists, it's very a common concept that every visual artist has their own working space in their own city. For performance artists, it's not. Because often you work abroad or in theaters, or the spaces are factually very big and expensive. So we said, hey, performance artists, let's hook up to a community and try to get space together. And then I said, 10 years ago, they were like, what do you mean sharing a biotope with somebody I don't know, or maybe that I artistically maybe don't like? Yeah. It was an utopia. So we had a long way with a lot of experiments, and by doing practical experiments. And at a certain moment we said, hey, let's do it. So we rent 1,000 square meter work and rehearsal space in the north of Rotterdam, Zomerhof Kwartier, where Almondestraat also was. We are still there, negotiating about the space. It's the same owner. It costs a lot of energy still. And we share it, and every artist, we are 50, has their own key. So what does 24/7 access to your own workspace mean for your own practice? It's already a lot. We have big spaces, we have small spaces, we have desk spaces, and we have a binnenplein, a center living room where you factually cross each other. And that's different than all these old school buildings where you have long hallways and doors, and right and left they close. No, here it's a really social space. And actually tonight there is an event and it looks totally different. Totally. So it's very, very adaptable. But we also do believe that space in the center of the city is very important. People come here and then they go away. So maybe they're there for 2 hours and then they go away to their partners somewhere else. It's different than a visual artist. So 50 performance artists, they all have their own practices. Performance is dance, theater, music theater. We have some friends of artists here in the audience. It's people that just graduated and come from the theater school of Maastricht, especially to Rotterdam, or it's Club Gewalt that is already also in the culture plan and very experienced. So in that sense, it's a very diverse group. Also in artistic ambitions. It goes all directions. A community does not only need space and people, it also, that was our assumption, it also needs activities together. So we have an extended artist development platform. This is also why we get subsidy from the government. They call it talentontwikkeling, talent development. We call it artist development because they're all professionals already. a little gray area, but we like to stretch systems. This is why we initiate a time window, to stretch the system for opportunities for performance artists, right? So to give you a little brief view on what we all do, in the artist development platform, you have the informal quick wins, you know, sharing tears and fears and questions, like when you cross on the bin-up line. That's very easy, but very important, very, very important. We have the peer-to-peer sessions also, with the vision, especially with the vision to learn from each other and not from the expert that is telling you what you need to believe or know. We have public events, and very specifically, we have a nice phenomenon that the artists are time window organization. So you learn by doing business, by doing PR, by doing curation, by doing all the organizational shit that you normally as individual artists needed to do all yourself alone. Now you share and you can choose. You choose what you like or you choose what you want to learn. So this last one, actually being also the self-organized organization, has a high effect on your learning path. And we thank Erasmus master student who measured that impact. It was an assumption, now we know it. So we are really happy with that. But okay, just to give you a few pictures, this was last year in Tent, when the first time we had the big festival outside of our house, because 50 artists inviting 2 people, and we are 100 people allowed in the space, then we get packed. We needed to move out. We also have the little sister of the festival, which is the Testival, to test work next to each other. It's very scary to show fragile work, but doing it together is much easier, and it's very nice because people come in and they move from one testing work to the other, and on the bin-up line they have a biertje in between. So the atmosphere is very informal and fun, and the public is very young and not the typical public that goes to theaters. I feel a little bit rushed because we're back in time, but you ask me any questions when you don't understand later. So the mindset, do it yourself but not alone. Okay, but then the community and taking it seriously. What is a community organization? Because we said, we did a research actually, how can you sustain such a crazy thing? And we found out this is a professional organization. So we found out that the motivation is bleeding dead after a while because people get used to it or they get annoyed or whatever. Or other communities would make conventional choices and would become a conventional organization with fixed tasks and fixed jobs and less movement, what a community needs. Or you get sucked by a large institution as an innovative organ. And all these 3 things actually almost happened to us. We got an offer by a big organization to get in. Like, no, sorry. Yeah, so we said, okay, what else do we do? And we've chosen for the sociocracy as a model that would keep the openness, the participation, and also the leading. And we don't call it leading because communities are not so happy with the term leadership, because that means power. We call it coordinator or puller. But what does it mean? Okay, you can join all these comités. Everybody has open access. There are the domains that you can do your own policy, make your own decisions, and we are connected in an inner circle. If you want to know more about it, ask me later. But sociocracy, I personally believe, is a way how you empower groups to collaborate, participatory and effective. With leadership. There needs to be, leadership here is a role. You need somebody who drags and coordinates and reminds, etc. Yeah? Second thing in the sociocracy is the consent decision making. For us, inclusivity in the art sector as a hot item does not stop with a diverse construction. There can still be the autocratic person on the top or the implicit egos that dominate all cultures. No, it is about if you really want to be inclusive, you need to learn how to collaborate inclusively. And this is a hell of a job. It's a hell of a job. It is really about changing behaviors, etc. So therefore we have also commitment guidelines, code of conduct, collaborational principles, and the LOVE system to pay people for their efforts. LOVE, leak-proof operator of wake economics. Leak-proof operator for wake economics. It's a system that the business committee created. How can we share money in a way that suits a community? You value yourself on different pillars, different questions in retrospective. Then everything is shared and there's a calculation machine. Yeah, you don't want to know what it is, but the group is very creative. It's super, it's co-creation. So, last, what we do is the local engagement. We send a lot of unrequested advices to the policy. That's why they also like us. Because we are 50, we are visible, so we have a voice. Second, we created with the Groot Rotterdam's Atelier Weekend and other parties, we created the Atelier Unie because we said there are so many good initiatives in the city and they all reinvent their wheels and they all advocate for keeping spaces. We need to do it together. And therefore this lobby organ. We also sent advices. And also in the new broedplaatsenbeleid, we are quoted with our data. But still, you know, there is somebody who can choose which advice do I like and which I don't like. The ones that we like the most are not taken. And yeah, last but not least, the Soho Curation Group. There's a lot to say about Soho. Pete can join me on that. This is a nice story because through the sociocratic model, we have been able to take this assignment to define the cultural values and the selection process for the 4,000 square meters ourselves. We said, give us the framework, the square meters and the price you want to receive, and the rest is on us, and there's nobody who has a say. We fill it in. This is a nice story about participation and a mandate and claiming it, and also have, the say, the final say. I have a lot of stuff about challenges there, but I think I would like to end. We need the social support next to the space, which is really under pressure. And we always say, don't make the same mistake as Berlin, because they know that they economically lose in their city culture. And they try to get spaces back for creatives. But I would like to end actually about an awareness that we really all together have to be aware about participation whitewashing or participation burnouts. I see a lot of people burning out by participating. And therefore, thank you, we need to do it for real, and we need solid processes to work on. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Given the time, I will try to keep it as short as possible. I've instructed Valeria to wave at me when I've spoken for 5 minutes. Unlike the projects that we've heard about and the initiatives we've heard about before, our project is just starting in some ways, and in other ways it's also part of a longer history and trajectory. I would like to talk about the Cultuur Campus Putselaan, which at the moment is a European-funded project that's taking place in Rotterdam South. And it is part of a longer trajectory because it connects to plans the city has, or had, depends who you talk to set up a campus in Rotterdam South, a campus for the University of the Arts, the Codarts Willem de Koning, and also the artistic and humanities sections of Erasmus University. Now that plan is on hold, but at the time when we were applying for this project, we thought, well, there's a lot of talk about this campus, and it's very far in the distant future. Why don't we try and scramble together some funds from some source to try and see whether a partnership would actually work, and how we would work together, how we would set that partnership up between these art schools, the university, the city, and local stakeholders, rather than worry about something that might never happen in the distant future. We wanted to take action and try and plant a seed for this. Now, at that time, 3 years ago, there was a call from the EU under the banner of the new European Bauhaus Lighthouse Demonstrates, a very long name. And they were looking for 5 test beds in Europe to try out new ways of working that would implement, on the one hand, ideals of the European Green Deal, so Europe's sustainability objectives, with also community participation and support for grassroots initiatives. The arts are also very important in the new European Bauhaus. So we thought this would be a very nice call to see if we could get started with our collaboration. To everyone's disbelief, we got the funds, and this is why the Putselaan is now a project that has been running for about 1.5 years. The plan for our project is to develop a hub in Rotterdam South on the Putselaan. It's in this building here that is in the picture. I have a better picture of it. And it's a hub where the university will collaborate with Codarts and Willem de Koning and the municipality, as well as other stakeholders. So we're also working with a business club. It is a business incubator and provides entrepreneurial support for people at a distance from the labor market who want to set up their own company. So this is also, on the next slide, an overview of who is working with us on this project. The building on the Putselaan is a monumental building which is in need of renovation, and that process is starting now. It has 1,000 square meters. It has 3 floors, and it has a big garden with lots of birds and bats. And I'm mentioning this because actually in the renovation phase, biodiversity and the surrounding life of this building was a very important factor, and it's also one of the reasons why our renovation has been slowed down, because we have to take into account breeding season, etc., etc. So lots of things that I'd never thought about are now part of my life, which is really great. This is not such a good picture, but I wanted to show where the building is located, and obviously you all are maybe very familiar with the NPRZ, the National Programme for Rotterdam South, and this also creates a context where there is a lot of distrust in the institutions, and also a threat a real experience of gentrification in Rotterdam South. So our project is also trying to find the best way of also relating to these very important questions and challenges, and see how best to proceed, taking into account the need to build trust slowly, and also to think about our own impact, the impact that such a building might have on its surroundings. I will just quickly show the things that will happen in this building, because I see Valeria has already waved at me. So we are renovating a building and putting it to good use, or hopefully. This is also part of the ambition of the program that we applied for, to look at how we can put heritage buildings to new use, but also make them more sustainable and future-proof. We are working with also the Afrikaner Wijk Coöperatie. I'm not sure if they are still present. They were here today. We're working with them also on developing a research agenda that does not impose research questions, but really tries to generate them bottom up. in participation with local residents. We are developing new forms of learning, not just for our students, the people who are enrolled in our institutes, but also others, to try and make our learning more accessible, but also to learn ourselves through interactions with people who are not necessarily enrolled in our programs. We also have a maker space, and repair cafe will be integrated in the building. The business incubator I've already mentioned, and Ruben, who was here earlier, is also working with local stakeholders to develop a plan of activities that will take place. We also hope to host many events like this at the Putselaan in next year when the building will open. This I won't show. This is one impression of some workshops that we've been running to discuss with local residents, in this case younger residents of the area, to see what they would like to see in the building. So we gave them the plans of the building. A lot of really interesting things came up, like dance lessons, photography lessons, but also a nail parlor and a PlayStation room, all sorts of things that we're now thinking, how can we combine all of these ideas to make it a really vibrant place. As I said, the building will be open next year, so in the meantime we're also doing pop-up activities. We have collaborated with the Bloemhof Festival last year, and you're also all invited to come and join us on the 8th of June, right, Jana? So we are collaborating with them again, setting up workshops and doing co-creation events with local residents, young and old. I think this is all I will say for now. So thank you for your attention.
Thank you so much, Amanda, for also wrapping it up quickly.
Now I can breathe.
I don't think we have more than 5 minutes to have some questions, but I would like to encourage questions from the audience if there is some. Okay, otherwise I have a backup plan, which is not really a backup, but each of your presentations have sparked some, have had some insights on specific things, but now I would like to ask I would like to make some questions for others based on someone else's insight, which means that, for instance, from Tom's presentation, I realized that there is this urgency to going beyond the state and the market towards the community, and I would like to ask Marieke to reflect maybe briefly on, based on her experience, about what about the relationships among these different important actors of urban development? Do you have an insight for us?
Yeah, I think that, well, we are all from the neighborhood, so for us, the community is the starting point. But from there, you quickly start to meet all these different actors. So you start to meet, of course, the municipality, but also the market. And that's, I think, is like kind of reality that you should work with and try to find your way with. So I sometimes feel that community-driven initiatives, they quickly get into the mood of like, oh, but they are against us, or it doesn't work, and it easily becomes kind of negative. And for me, it always has been like the search, like how can we really work together and find a realistic way? So, for example, I think always like one of the main things the elder man here is always trying to portray about buildings, like the Bouwplaats buildings. Like either you have like places where we make money, especially in the zomerkwartier. So the option was, okay, we sell everything and we will make money, or the other, the opposite is like we have these pitiful initiatives and we have to add a lot of money. And I think our thing is to show that there is ways in between, so that there is a kind of realism. Like in our buildings, which is 2,000 square meters, 1,500 square meters are rented out, also to makers, and we ask these makers also to do a social return. So it's not only for making the whole thing run, it's also they add something to the community. But on the other hand, it's only 500 square meters that are completely public. And that is also kind of realism. It forces people to use the space like shared spaces much more. So everybody comes in and wants the space for themselves.
But you, in your presentation, you showed how the purchase was a very important moment in your experience, right? And so you highlighted the importance of the shift that might come in terms of perception of the community itself, maybe self-reflection of the community when you have actual legal ownership over the space. It seems that the importance of the space has been a very common thread here. And this is a question that sparked from your presentation that I would like to pose to Jette, actually, because I think you might I don't know if you have this in your experience and in your practice, but what do you think about it? I think it could be nice to maybe...
Can you exactly ask?
She highlighted the importance of the ownership of the space. I don't know, I don't think you have that, right?
Not the factual.
But what do you think it would mean for you?
I mean, the fact that we are renting it already provided ownership to the performance artists that they never knew before. This own key to your own space. Also, if we rent it, we did rent it actually as community much cheaper than they wanted. So we said, you take 1/3 of the price off, otherwise we're not taking it. So you want to rent it all or nothing. So we have a good rent. We don't own it. We wanted to buy something. We didn't succeed, because we don't get through the city conversations and vastgoed part. But I think ownership, it was said also in an earlier panel, I think the factual ownership is the only way to go. Otherwise, everything is temporary and insecure.
Thank you so much. Maybe
one last thing, because it is a challenge. We do try to share the spaces even more. Now we have owners of different spaces. Maybe there are 3 owners of one rehearsal space. And we try to grow into a bigger sharing economy, because factually the spaces are still 50% empty. But it's really hard for the people that are now owning it to let it go and let again other people in and lose control. But we need to, because I mean prices go up, and access goes down, down, down. So if we don't practice it by doing, and that clashes in the conversation with the artists, because it's not blaming, but I look more in the future than some of the artists do, and then it clashes, and it's a pity.
It seems to me that your experience is very much about a community that is quite self-aware. Right, we're talking about artists, and I do some research on artists too, and yeah, you can be a bit stubborn sometimes. But there was just a joke. But this is just a terrible way to bounce to Tom and trying to figure out if maybe he can give us like a penny for your thoughts about how would you maybe deal, considering your role as some sort of an intermediary between the community, the market, and the state, and the government, dealing with maybe sometimes, I don't know if this has happened to you, but has it happened that you had to deal with a community which was more precarious, but at the same time very self-aware, without ownership? Like, I think that your situation is pretty common in the landscape that we have seen here. So maybe your position is a bit different, right? So maybe you can highlight some important points.
Yeah, good question. And maybe just first to clarify, because maybe I wasn't totally clear on what I meant by the 3 shifts that I talked about. I didn't mean to suggest that the community takes over or that everything is separate, but more that we have a balance between the 3, that everyone plays their role together. I think you said it well, that often there's the poor community and the this and that, and I think now we have a domination of the market forces and the government, and the community is very separate. But it's additive, the 3 shifts. But yeah, in terms of the role, what I often see is in a lot of individual initiatives or neighborhoods collectively is difficulty getting past the pilot stage. So there are a lot of incredible initiatives that happen, for example, in our neighborhood, in Middelland, in West. But getting to the stage, for example, there have been attempts to take over the social housing tendering process, which is normally dominated by big companies. That didn't succeed. But there's more these collective arrangements where moving beyond a single initiative that usually a dedicated team comes in with a lot of energy and initiative and saying, okay, how do we broaden this and upscale it? And I think that's especially where our role comes in, because there you need specialist expertise. And I love these ideas of community building where the community has everything and can do everything itself. There's always to a point that it has everything that it needs. At some point there is professional expertise necessary. And I think that's what a lot of neighborhoods and initiatives are facing in the coming phase. That we have now a lot of really great demonstration pilots and how to take those further, and especially in a very inclusive way. I think that's the main challenge, because a lot of initiatives have started with this dedicated core team, which is essential. It's normally how it starts. But how to broaden the ownership beyond that team, that's I think the real trick in the upscaling.
You were about to open a very big Pandora box about the role of experts in political economy. This is a very important problem, where resides knowledge. But I think what you just said lands perfectly to what I wanted to ask to Amanda finally, because you talked about the importance of expertise that at some point in this community-driven source of developments seem crucial. And I think that this is something that could be happening with your project of the Kulturcampus Puzelan regarding the getting together of different societal actors, right? But the question for you would be, since you, at least this is how I interpreted it, you belong to maybe more the expertise type of actor. But how do you make a community?
I wouldn't call myself the expert here, because I think it's about really just opening up and listening. And this is also, I think, how we try to approach this. We don't have the answers, and the answers come from the conversations we have by being present, by meeting as many people as possible in different contexts, and just hearing and listening to what can we do together, how can we combine our resources and strengths, and what would be a good plan. So it's a lot of listening and trying to ask right questions or good questions that open up that dialogue. And that's the phase we're in right now. So it's kind of very big exploration at the moment, and trying to make sense of the things that we are finding out. But it's also maybe an institutional questioning, because you also realize a lot of the things that you're also mentioning about sharing space. We also plan to share space with many different people who have different rules and expectations. At our university and the art academies, we have specific rules about who has access, how should the internet work. I mean, all things that you really don't think about when you have this ideal of everyone together, but actually they're very practical problems that that create barriers that we also have to remove and keep asking, can we do it in a different way that can work? So.
Thank you so much. I hope that you're ending on a importance of conversations note, which
So,
I think today we did. Hopefully this was helpful for everybody. I would like to close this session, if that is all right for you guys. Thank you so much.